All right, we are live. Today is the season finale of GlowJoy's Everything Construction Corner. I've done 18 episodes. We started this back in November of 2023 with pilot episodes. My name is Gloria Marie. Welcome, everybody. Today I have Megan Shapiro. How are you doing, Megan?
Great. It's Friday. Can't complain, right?
I know. And Megan is out in the West Coast. Megan, why don't you introduce yourself to the folks who absolutely know nothing about you or who you are?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Megan Shapiro. I am primarily a full-time practicing construction attorney in California specifically. That is where I am licensed to practice law. I also do proactive strategic risk management for construction leaders, and I do that through one-on-one strategy sessions, through on-site team trainings for construction
Mhm.
companies, and most recently through my self-study online course.
All right. So, most people call you when something happens, right?
Yep.
Not before. So very unique. We'll jump right in and we'll let people, just kind of join in and or catch a replay. But most people are not going to pick up the phone and call a lawyer or a consultant or whomever unless they have some sort of violation or somebody's going after them for not fulfilling their contract or they're not getting paid or whatever, right? And there's all sorts of different types of construction law. So, clear number one, this is not attorney advertisement. And this is also not legal advice or, any type of legal advice whatsoever. You need to go to your personal attorney or your local municipality and check what the construction law is and all of that stuff. So we threw that disclaimer out there. And also, Megan's in California, I'm in New York. So, obviously there are many, many states in between the two of us. So, yeah, we definitely want you to do your own due diligence.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you said that because I actually had a custom mug made for my live stream called the Neighborhood Coffee Shop, and it specifically says, I don't know if you can read that. It says hashtag not legal advice.
Yes, yes. And I remember that from our last live stream, which thank you for the reminder. Today I have my mug from Third Culture Kid, y'all, which is custom art. And this is a local artist from Houston, Texas. So Third Culture Kid. The owner is one of my friends. So shout out to Zena. And thank you so much to those who are here. Once again, make sure you like, also subscribe and all of that jazz so that the algorithm can push this out to more people and also so we can grow the different channels both on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So let's dive right in because you could have been any type of lawyer, Megan. And this is a construction podcast. And we like to highlight different careers in the construction industry. So a lot of people think construction, hammer, tool belt. They're not thinking lawyer. So why
Right.
construction? That's everybody's first question.
Yeah, and I actually love telling this story because I, like a lot of people, when I first decided that I wanted to be a lawyer, it was based on like what I see in TV and movies. I didn't have any family
Hmm.
members that were attorneys, so all I had to go on was Hollywood. So I, of course, initially thought like, oh, I'm going to be in criminal law because that's what we see in movies
Hmm.
and TV. Like, I'm going to be a DA, I'm going to be a public defender, I'm going to do the criminal law stuff. Um, and I started down that path. I worked at the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office when I was in law school, but I graduated law school in 2009, and we all remember what the economy did in 2009. And so,
Hmm.
out here in California, anyway, all of the state agencies were on hiring freezes. So, none of the public defender's offices were hiring, none of the district attorney's offices were hiring. So, I got
Right.
really lucky that I found a job with a solo civil law practitioner. And for those of
Okay.
you who may not know this, what that means, when you think about law as a concept, it's either criminal law or everything else, and that's civil law. So if it's not criminal, it's civil. So I started working for him, and was working my way through with the, economy doing what it was doing. And then I ultimately found a job posting for the firm that I'm at now. It had a different name then because I'm the Shapiro in the firm name now. And I interviewed there. And when I got the position, they had a construction practice, but it was pretty small and it was
Mm-hmm.
not held in super high esteem by the attorneys at the firm. So they kind of used it as training ground for new young lawyers because they felt like it wasn't a complicated thing. And so even a young lawyer could figure out how to do it. So when I got
Yeah.
hired, I was like, I'd been practicing for like 2 years at that point. So they were like, okay, new girl, here you go. But I
Mm-hmm.
got really lucky because one of the firm's biggest construction clients at the time was a concrete subcontractor, and they had just hired a new general manager, like literally about a month between me getting hired at the firm too. So he came in, was looking at their P&L and was like, you know what, we're spending a lot on legal. I want to personally take some ownership of this and dig in. So he came in and I came in and we both were like, well, neither one of us know like what this is supposed to be. So let's make it what we want it to be. And I sort of fell in love with construction law. I discovered a previously unknown love for concrete too. So I love to say concrete has my heart. I am like
That's
a
so
huge
funny.
concrete. Yeah, I love concrete. We had a great process. I went to the partners at the time and I said, you know what? This no longer has to be the training ground for young lawyers. I want to take
Hmm.
ownership of this. I like it. It's strategic. There is actually a lot of nuance to it. You can be really intentional and proactive if you're taking it seriously. And I want to own it.
Hmm.
And so that was 2012, 2013. Since then, I've grown my practice, grown the business, and now I'd say probably 95% of my law practice is construction clients, mostly subcontractors, some GCs, some owners, but mostly subs. And so I sort of fell into it that way. Then I fell in love with it. And then I literally fell in love with it because my husband is a superintendent for an mechanical division. He does HVAC and he used to work for one of my clients, which is how we met. So it all came full circle.
Ah, that's amazing. I really love that story. And really, because I see actually a little bit of parallel, even though I am not a lawyer. One of my very first construction jobs was actually when I was working in real estate development, and I needed a part-time job as a licensed real estate agent. I did not want to wait tables. So I actually got a job during the day doing paralegal work for a construction law firm. And for those who follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see that, very clearly on my LinkedIn, and the partners and, people who were associates back when I was there, now partners, have written recommendations for me. We still work very, very closely with the firm. It's one of the largest, if not the largest, construction mom and pop law firm here in New York City in the East Coast. And, you mentioned training ground. I kind of see them a little bit as a training ground for young associates, but like also some of the folks who work there then turn around and work for the building department when they move on in their career, which is the people that they go against. So I think I find that a little bit comical. So let's talk a little bit about and shift gears, subcontractors. And I don't know what's happening with the comments or stuff. I do see Lance said, let's effing go. The he said, friends unite. So, and for those who are here, I have no idea what's going on with the comments. Like I see them on LinkedIn, but they're not on StreamYard. So we're just going to have a chat and we'll post these comments later. But thank you for being here. So, um, you know, for subcontractors predominantly, I think, what are, let's say, three of the biggest things that people come to you after the fact, that, or maybe the number one thing that people come to you after the fact, um, that they could have very easily had like a risk plan for to start?
So I would say the answers when you added the second part of that, I was like, oh, the answer maybe changes a little bit because I would say for the contractors who don't have any sort of intentional proactive risk management strategy in place, I would say the top two things that they come to me for after the fact, after a dispute has arisen, is either construction defect claims, or it is payment disputes, and I'm going to say slash delay claims, because oftentimes those two things go hand in hand, of course, right? So those are probably the biggest things that I see for the people who don't have a proactive strategy. Fortunately, I take the philosophy of dealing with my clients that I like to have clients, not cases. So I've had my clients for many, many, many years now. I still represent that concrete subcontractor, for example, 14 years later. And so
that's awesome.
yeah,
So you grew with them.
That's exactly what it is, right? And so and I have the same philosophy with all of my clients. And so fortunately, I don't get as often into that situation, at least not with my existing client base, because we've been together for so long that we've come along on the proactive risk management journey together. So they're not having to sort of field those sort of reactive, responsive types of situations as often anymore. Now I really encounter that more when it's new clients who I haven't had a dealing with yet, right? So I had a phone call today with a potential new client that is in the middle of a public works project, and there's a scope change and a dispute about whether or not there's going to be a signed change order that goes along with it, and they're trying to figure out claims process, do we have to perform, all of those sorts of questions, right? So it's like, okay, let's jump in, let's dig in. Now it's time sensitive, now it's urgent. Like, okay, here we go. It's Friday afternoon, but game on, right? So so those are the kinds of things that usually pop up with new clients when they don't come to me until they have an actual problem. It's always urgent, it's always time sensitive, and it's usually related to either change orders, scope issues, or delay claims, because the construction defect issues don't usually pop up until a few years after they're off the job.
Right. And I've seen some of that. We work with a couple of historic and older properties where perhaps they didn't know what they didn't know, or they hired the wrong subcontractor to restore a slate roof, and the contractor had no business doing a slate roof because they knew nothing about slate roofing. And they, from a building science perspective, I'll geek out here a little bit, but new products don't necessarily always work with the older products, and the chemicals don't typically or don't always adhere to each other. Sometimes there's a little bit of extra prep that's required. Anyway, some subcontractors just don't know what they don't know. So doing due diligence, even as an owner or as a client, figuring out, okay, does this person even know how to deal with this roofing issue in the first place, right? And then, of course, as an owner representative, I'm going to say, don't hire the cheapest contractor. There's a reason that it's the cheapest contractor. Sometimes they just are too eager for the work, or sometimes they just missed a couple of steps, or going to cut a couple of things out of the process without you paying attention, right? Because they don't document everything. Like, there's so many different things. We could go on and on and on, but doing your due diligence when hiring contractors is really, really important. The other thing that I see a lot as an owner rep is not collecting insurance certificate. But why? But why? If you would have collected the insurance certificate in the first place, we could have just filed an insurance claim for the roofing that was done incorrectly to start, right?
Yep.
And this is for clients who don't know what they don't know, right? And I wanted to bring you on today specifically. It's the last day of the month. It's half a year in. We've got a lot of ish going on in the media. It's an election year here in the United States. Okay. There's just a lot going on, right? So people are distracted, to say the least, right? And then you got to worry about the grocery bills and everything else. So there's just so much going on. So as small business owners, we could sit here and talk about different scenarios, point the finger at owners and contractors, but my goal really in the construction industry in our business is to leave it better than we found it. It's part of why we started this show back during the pandemic on Clubhouse, moved it to LinkedIn. We're going to take it seriously and like bring some like techie people on for season 2.
Nice.
And, I really want to turn it into something that also grows with me. I am one of those small business owners, and we recently got licensed, and we're licensed in 2 states and sorry, 3 states. And we'll probably continue to get licensed in other states. And so as we grow as businesses, as we evaluate, and I hope people are evaluating their 6 months, past 6 months, with their accountants and whatever. I'm freezing again. But, as we evaluate these things, I want people to also put money aside for contingencies and risk and unforeseen, not just taxes. So, how much, and you're in California, I'm in the East Coast, people, so do your own homework. But in general, how much do you think that people on a per project basis should be putting aside as a contingency, percentage wise?
Percentage wise, I don't know if I have a good answer for percentages, because my answer is actually going to talk a little bit about insurance. You talked about, the
Perfect.
certificates of insurance, right? Because if you're doing insurance right, and by that what I mean is you have a knowledgeable broker who's experienced with construction companies specifically, right? And they know your business inside and out, so they really do know what your risk exposure areas are for which there is insurance available. And by that, what I mean is, like, of course, there are going to be areas of risk that there's no insurance for. For example,
right,
with a bad corporate formation decision, that there's insurance isn't going to save you from that, right? So there are other areas of risk, but a lot of areas of risk in construction can be mitigated by insurance policies. And so assuming that you have the proper policies in place for your scopes of work, what you're performing, your exposures that are insurable, then I would suggest, for proactive business planning purposes in terms of setting aside money, that you should assume worst case scenario that you're going to get one claim for every project that you're doing this year. And then look at your insurance, either deductible or SIR. SIR stands for self-insured retention. There's a little bit of a difference between a deductible and an SIR, but for the purposes of this conversation, you can functionally assume they're the same thing. Whatever that number is, set it aside and assume you're going to get a claim on this project at some point, and that way you have the money to satisfy the deductible or the SIR. Deductibles can be as low as $500 if your trade is considered a low risk trade. They can go all the way up. I've seen SIRs all the way up to $75,000 per project. So only you'll know what that number is, you and your broker. But I would say the best course of action, best practice, safest, most risk or least risk averse. Wait, did I say that backwards? Most risk averse would be to assume you're going to get one claim for every project and save the deductible / SIR, set it aside. So that way, when you get that claim, you can at least trigger your insurance and be able to satisfy your obligation to make sure coverage takes over.
That's really, really good advice. And for folks who want to learn a little bit more about insurance, you can check out our Lunch and Learn episode with Isaac Schwadell, who's an incredible construction-specific real estate broker who gave us, almost an hour of his time a couple months ago, and broke down some of the things that you want to look for as contractors when you're shopping for insurance. So, if you, as a smaller contractor, let's say, right? And again, not attorney advice, but hashtag not legal advice. Bring it up. Yep.
Got it. Yep. There we go.
Cheers.
Yes.
So if you, as a subcontractor, let's say, because a lot of people do this, they may start a business with one thing and then start to like grow their business. And then I promise you we'll get off this insurance tangent. How often a year, from a risk management standpoint, should you, be reevaluating, your insurance, because a lot of people wait until their insurance expires, which is like a year later. And I can tell you, for me, like, I've upgraded my insurance twice this year because of the type of project we've been invited to, or
Mhm.
maybe we hired somebody new or whatever, right? So I want to make sure, like you mentioned, that I'm covered in whatever it is that I'm doing.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm actually super excited to hear that there is somebody out there who is reevaluating their insurance outside of renewal time based on new projects and new scopes. Like, yay! I'm so excited. Um, so yeah, so in my online self-study course, I actually have a whole module dedicated to insurance. So I love talking about this because I come at
Okay.
it from a different perspective than your brokers are going to, right? I usually work hand in hand and collaboratively with brokers to make sure that our
Hmm.
mutual clients are protected. And sometimes that puts me in the position of having to sue the insurance carriers on behalf of the clients, and the brokers can't do that. So I love talking about
Hmm.
insurance. I actually do in my module have some tools and tricks on these types of questions. Like, how often do we reevaluate? What are the triggers for reevaluating? I even have
Yeah.
some guidelines about questions to ask when you're interviewing new brokers, or how to keep your current broker on their toes and not get complacent. So super happy to talk about this. In terms of
Woohoo!
how often yeah. So in terms of how often you should be sort of evaluating it and looking at it, certainly in advance of renewal time. And so I don't
Hmm.
mean like your broker is sending you the email of like, hey, we're renewing your policies today. Just need your approval because we got to do it today to bind, right? I don't mean that.
No,
I
no,
mean
no.
sufficiently in advance of your renewal period. You know when your renewal
Right.
period is. It's the same time every year. It's going to be different for everybody. So I can't just say like, oh, always in July. Your renewal
Right.
period will be different depending on your company, but you'll know when it is because it's the same time every year because your policy term is 1 year. So at least a month or two out from that, I would say you need to start digging in and doing a little bit of an assessment about the work that you have done for the last year, the work that's in the pipeline, and even your strategic growth plans for the company that you have. Because
Yep.
maybe those things will come to fruition in the next 12 months. Maybe they won't come to fruition for the next 24 to 36 months. But
Mhm.
knowing those things and having done that homework and having those in your mind will inform the conversation that you have with your broker, so that your broker can give you some advice about what the insurance market is doing. It may make sense to proactively now get some insurance policies that you don't necessarily need for the next fiscal year, but you know you
Mhm.
will in the next 2 or 3. But because of the market rates, it might make sense to get in now, right? So that would be something that
Yep.
your broker would know. Aside from that, to your point, Gloria, I would say if you all of a sudden got a new project that is something new for you that isn't your sort of normal, whether that's because you're expanding, you've got growth,
Right.
or it just fell into your lap and you're like, hey, let's do it. Because especially
Yep.
in 2024, who's turning away any work right now, right?
Yeah.
Um, then that might be a time too, right? It might be a situation where, again, this is why it's like so important to have a good relationship and with a qualified, knowledgeable broker. Pick up the phone and call your broker and say, hey, we just got this job. It's got waterproofing, and we don't typically do waterproofing. And I know that can be an area of additional risk for
Yeah.
what we call pollution, right? Because mold is what's covered under a pollution policy. Most typical general liability policies are going to have mold exclusions. So if you now
Right.
are doing waterproofing, it's not necessarily your expertise, not something you're super comfortable with. You want to hedge your bets. You want to be proactive with your risk management. You want to set yourself up in case something does go wrong. I mean, of course, none of us want to think that we're going to perform poorly, but if it happens,
Right.
you never know. If it happens, and there is a mold claim that is a direct result of your improper installation of the waterproofing material, you want to make sure that you've got that extra insurance policy, that pollution policy that's going to cover it, because otherwise your GL is not going to cover it and you're left holding the bag. So
Yep.
anytime you're venturing into sort of new uncharted territory, it's never a bad idea to do a quick little check-in with yourself and with your broker to make sure that the policies that you have are the policies that you need going forward.
Yeah, and guys, I want to say this is really important to have a good relationship with your broker. Thinking that you're going to pick up the phone, call your broker, and they're just going to try to upsell you or whatever. I've called my broker thinking that I need more insurance, and all they do is ask me for the insurance of the prime to review, or, if we're the prime, the subs or whatever, and maybe they work out something where they have to upgrade their insurance, not me. So, they're you really, really have to have a good relationship with your insurance broker, because the insurance broker is always going to have your best interest at heart. And that doesn't always necessarily mean that you're going to end up spending more money. Maybe the people that you are hiring need to get better coverage, so that, that's all lumped in together into policies. And, insurance, not a sexy topic. I get it, legal, not a sexy topic, but like, you don't want the building department coming in and issuing mold violations and remediation, work, or vacate orders. At least that's what they do here in New York. They'll issue a partial vacate of whatever, so that the issue could be resolved, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you just don't need that stuff in your life. Nobody needs that stuff, especially on a Friday.
Yeah, you raised a really good point, because that's what I love about proactive risk management so much, because it's so much strategy. There are so many things that you can piece together. I like to think of risk as a puzzle, right? If you
Right.
think of your comprehensive risk management strategy as a puzzle, every little piece does its own little part to contribute to the overall complete picture. Insurance is one of those pictures. It's reactive by nature, but it's an important part of a proactive risk management strategy. But to your point that you mentioned just a second ago, Gloria, I love this. Another huge part of it is your contracts. You just said, like, maybe you just need to have the party, your sub or sub tier contractor, maybe they need to bump up their insurance. 100%. If you've got a great, comprehensive, thorough sub contract or sub tier contract, that can be one of your most powerful risk allocation, risk shifting mechanisms. You can push down so much of that risk to your sub tier, so that they're the ones that are holding the risk. They're the ones that now are in the best possible position to insure against that risk for that piece of the proactive risk management puzzle. And so that's another way where it all kind of works together to just, and that's why, like, I get so excited about this. My passion, I think, comes through a little bit. I get so excited about it, because that's the beauty and the excitement of being intentional about risk, because you can sit down instead of just like, oh, that popped off, like dealing with the things as they come. If you sit down and say, like, okay, I'm going to strategize out my risk, then you can see that full puzzle. Then you can see the full picture. And so you can say, okay, I need this type of insurance for this puzzle piece. We need to make sure we've got this particular indemnity provision in our sub-tier subcontract. So let's make sure that's in there. We need to make sure that we've got this part of the red line on our prime contract. So let's make sure that's like, then when you actually can see the whole picture, that's when you can really get strategic about it and make that puzzle the picture that you want it to be for your company. And I get super excited about it.
And I'm really happy that you get super excited about it, because, I started this business almost 6 years ago now as a owner rep construction management company. It was called G. Marie and Co. And G. Marie and Co. was your girl and an assistant. Okay. That was it. If we needed to hire special consultants or whatever, we did. We'd hire our PEs, we'd hire environmental folks, asbestos, blah, 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 whatever. And really, the client ended up hiring those, so that, like, I had no risk. Okay.
Right. Love it.
So, and shout out to Cohen, Hockman, and Allen, I guess, in New York, for teaching me all the things not to do as I was working there, because, I don't even think about these things. It's second nature to me. It's like common sense. Don't do this stuff. But then I realized that not everybody was a paralegal for a construction law firm in New York.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of information that I just have that is second nature to me, that is not second nature to the rest of the world.
Right.
But I also geek out about this stuff, because as an owner representative, working with developers or working with businesses, collecting the insurance and figuring out who's responsible for what, and making sure that we are the ones that are additionally insured on everybody else's insurance. Okay.
Yep.
As are most of the times the architects and, engineers, landlords, property managers, like all of these different people, there's a reason for that. And it's because of their risk mitigation or risk management plans, and in how they plan and strategize their business. So for me, hiring a consultant or sitting down with my lawyer once a year or whoever, right? Because it changes depending on how my business grows. But spending those couple $1,000s, maybe couple $100, depending on what part of the country you're at, to sit down and have a conversation, review the numbers, review the type of projects we're working on,
Yep.
review our insurance, review what we're doing. I mean, it's totally worth it. You know,
Yes.
it's completely
Yes.
worth it. I remember speaking, I was getting ready to work a project, and this client was dead set on using a redlined AIA. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Okay. The choice.
Yeah.
It's a
So,
choice.
you know, I reached out to an old colleague and who now owns their own law firm as well and kind of deals in a different section of law and whatever. And I said, hey, here's this situation. And he was like, hey, pay us this retainer fee and we'll review the sections that you have concerns about and, reply to the attorney on your behalf. It's like way better than a what if at the end. And you know what? That project went to shit. Like, I am so grateful that we paid him. It was like $500. Like that $500, if we didn't have him review that, like we could have shot ourselves in the foot and been responsible for so many things that we were not responsible for. And
Yeah.
also, we just wouldn't have asked for the exit that we asked for and so many other things. So, team, you know, as we wrap up, this is my last and final question for you on the call. As you are planning as a business owner, concrete, you could be a painter, you could be a floor person, owner rep, whatever. Who should be on your team? We talked about insurance broker already, and we talked about legal, right?
Yep.
Who are the important people that need to be on the team from a risk management perspective that owners should be able to, even if it's once a year or once a quarter or whatever, consult with?
Ooh, that's a really good one. I got to give that one some thought because my two top go-tos are always broker and a knowledgeable construction attorney, because really so much of risk is held within those two intertwining little, like, silos of information. So I think your intent in asking the question based on how you phrased it was external team members, because you said talk to
Mhm.
once a year or something. I think besides those two, really the more important team members from a risk management standpoint are actually internal team members.
All
And I
right.
and I think by that, what I mean is I am a huge proponent of having an ownership mentality over the contracts for your specific projects.
Right.
Usually that's going to be the project manager within a construction company, but not all construction companies are organized in the same way. So it might be the PE, it might be somebody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
But whoever that person is that within the organization and structure of your company, who's in charge of who kind of runs the jobs, who's in charge of the project, they need to be full in on the idea of ownership mentality over the contracts for their projects, because as things do start to pop off and maybe start to go a little bit south, they need to know that contract forwards and backwards. They need to know what is within their purview to deal with versus when you need to escalate to the construction attorney or to the broker to start talking about whether or not this dispute needs to turn into an insurance claim. You
Right.
need to have that one person in-house on your team that can tell you every important provision of the contract. What's the change order procedure outlined in the contract? How many days are you required to give notice for? How long do you have to cure a defect that you've been given a notice to perform or a notice to cure? They need to know all of those things so that there's no delay. You don't have to wait for whoever within your company is empowered to make the decision. Yeah, let's call the lawyer. You don't have to wait for the lawyer to get back to you. you have the people inside that own it enough to say, these are the steps that we need to take right away out of the gate while we bring other team members to the table to figure out next steps. So I think,
I love that.
yeah. So I think that that's real. I think it's kind of a combination of like the in-house team members and the outside team members that really all work together based on the escalation strategy of when things start to pop off and go south.
I love that. And that's a really good answer because, for those small companies or smaller to mid-sized companies that we work with, or developers that have like mid-rise, not high rise, but smaller multifamily, we are that in-house team as an owner representative that works directly with the professionals. We know enough, right? To where we can make decisions for them on their behalf, and even have registrations to some of the buildings here with the building department. I can go speak to the building department on their behalf, and they don't have to be there. And so it's almost like that buffer in between. And then we'll typically get to a point where we will hire somebody in-house, or a group of somebody's
Right.
in-house, as they grow their portfolios, to take over the role that we have, been filling as a consultant or contractor. In New York State and Connecticut, we do self-perform some of the work. And then, of course, in Texas, we also can self-perform some of the work. But overall, we are going to be the CM. We're going to be the construction manager. We're going to be working on that risk assessment plan during that pre-construction phase,
Yes.
before we put a shovel in the ground, before we do absolutely anything, before we even go pull permits. Like, let's sit down for like a week and just go over everything with a fine-tooth comb, have the meetings that we need to have with all of the key stakeholders on the project. If the project is large enough, we'll even develop a project charter.
Yeah.
It's really, really, really important, like you said, to just be organized in 2024. Like, we we do not know what's going to happen tomorrow. We're getting crazy news on a daily basis here. It's not even weekly, it's daily now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there's
Yeah.
like crazy ish happening like everywhere.
Yes.
So I would say, you cannot have too much risk mitigation.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah, like you really can't. And you'll be happy that you did it,
Yeah.
and it could just be as little as spending a couple $100, right? Just
Yep.
for peace of mind. And people do this a lot when they're purchasing property. They'll have a due diligence period, and they'll spend some money on some consultants. I mean, who wants to spend money on land that they can't build on, or land that they have to like dig dirt out and like bring new dirt back in because of environmentals, or land that's protected, or who wants to like buy a building, find out it's landmarked, have to sit on it for 6 years thinking they could like demo it and build up, didn't do their due diligence. I mean, these are all real scenarios. Like, I'm not even making them up. And
Yep.
unfortunately, they'll usually call like when it's too late. And at that point, I'm just like, I can't even help you. Like, you're going to have
Yeah.
to call somebody else. Like, there's nothing we can do. Should have called us for that pre-construction agreement.
Exactly. I
So,
mean, that's the thing. Like, I've never had a client, or even a former client, even if they aren't working with me anymore, I've never once had somebody say, I really wish we wouldn't have spent that money on the front end. Never once in almost
never.
15 years of practice. Never had somebody go, that was such a waste of money to be prepared in advance.
Never, never. And a lot of times you're going to spend the money regardless. Okay. We could take a car scenario, right? You could buy a good certified pre-owned vehicle, or you could buy a POS vehicle that's not certified, hasn't been reviewed, off of salvage, off of Craigslist, if Craigslist still exists, and meet some rando at a parking lot, right? uh, Risk, there's two different sets of, one is less riskier than the other. They're both used cars. But you decide, right?
Yep.
And you may spend a little bit less for the one that you bought off of Craigslist from the rando, but because you're not a mechanic and not a car expert and whatever else, maybe you didn't know what you didn't know, and now this car is twice as much as the one that was certified pre-owned, because
Yep.
of that. So it's and there's so many other scenarios, with builders and with materials, which is where I see people be really cheap. Prep, they don't want to pay for additional prep for floors like subfloors, but then they're upset because their floors are wavy or whatever. So, typically when people do that, we as contractor or owner rep will say, hey, make sure that there is an exclusion there that says, floor prep not included and not responsible for uneven floors or whatever,
Yep.
because then they'll turn around at the end of the project and be like, well, why is there a wave in my floor?
Yeah.
Yeah, that subfloor you didn't want to replace. Yeah.
Yep.
you know. Anyway, Megan, thank you so much for being here today. I feel like you and I could geek out about
I know.
risk management and like risk assessments and how to, prep for your best projects and all that stuff. So, how can people find you?
So I'm super active on LinkedIn. My name is Megan Shapiro. It's spelled right there for you. It's at Construction Risk Strategist. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I made it convenient. There, it's all of them are at Construction Risk Strategist to make it easy to find me. If you're in California and you actually do need a lawyer, an actual construction attorney, my law firm is Radoslavich Shapiro. That's a mouthful, but it is radshap.com, radshap.com. And then you can find me at my personal website, which is just meganshapiro.com, meganshapiro.com.
Amazing, amazing. And my team will put all of this stuff in the show notes. Megan, you were the best guest to wrap up this season. Thank you so much for your time. I know it's your lunchtime, so I really appreciate you taking the time that you did. I'm sure you're hungry, so I'm going to give you back the rest of your afternoon, as the folks say. For my friends over here in the East Coast, I know it's the end of the day for you all, and it's Summer Fridays. So you enjoy your weekend. I know it's been a short week for everybody. And, we will catch you again at the end of the summer. I am going to, like a teacher, take the whole summer off. But
Yeah.
if you all want to touch base with us, we are actually uploading all of the episodes that we have here live on Spotify and also on iTunes. So you can just look up my name or Everything Construction Corner podcast and you'll find it online. I think they have already uploaded 6 episodes, the first 5 or 6 episodes of the pilot, and, are kind of making their way through the rest of the episodes. So yeah, we're launching like 1 episode a week. So by the time season 2 comes, we should be kind of close to caught up, if not caught up by then. And so, yeah, you can follow me at Glowjoy Co. also on every single platform. We made it super easy for you. That's at GLOJOY.co. That is also our website URL, www.glowjoy.co. GLOJOY.co. And yeah, everybody have an amazing summer. I might do a couple pop-up solo episodes, or maybe have a couple recorded episodes. We have one that I will launch next week with one of the co-op and intern students that worked with us throughout the year. So yeah, we did do a pre-recorded episode with the student. But yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much for the wealth of information. I know we just kind of skimmed the surface on a lot of this. And I also know that you have a course that probably goes much deeper into this stuff for folks who just want to build their own plan at their own pace. Last thing is you do have your own show, Megan. So last thing is, what is the name of your show? When does it air? So that people can also make sure they put on that notification bell for you and tune in if they want more of this juicy content.
Yeah, thank you for that. And the timing is great. It's called Risk to Revenue, the streaming sessions. And it is right now, it is exclusively a LinkedIn live stream, although I do have the videos on the YouTube channel. And our next episode is actually this upcoming Monday.
Sweet.
It's at 3 p.m. Pacific. So I think that's 6 p.m. for you guys in the East Coast. And my guest for this episode is Nanette Miner, and we're going to be talking about risk for construction leaders when it comes to succession planning for the business.
Amazing. And I'm going to tune into that because we've had a lot of changes here at Glowjoy, and those who follow on Insta probably know a lot more than what's going on here on LinkedIn. So if you want to get more juicy content, also make sure you follow me on Insta, folks. But thank you, Megan. Thank you, everybody. I will catch you all next season. Have a wonderful day and wonderful weekend. Bye.
Thank you.